Welcome back, guys, and in this video I want to share why you should use the rest keyword instead of the argument keyword when using your function. So I know many of you this is not clear what I'm going to speak about, but as we go along you're going to understand clearly what I meant by using the rest keyword instead of the argument keyword. So without further ado, let us dive in and see this into action. So for now, I'm just going to start with a simple function while I'm explaining some of this concept. And once we have understood this concept, then everything later will be more clear when I will be explaining to you guys. So I'm going to create a function here. Remember our function used word const. And I'm going to call this test. I'm going to say it is equal to, that is a function. And inside this function, I want to check if, for now, I want to pass two parameters. Let us say A and B. I want to say if A is greater than B, then do something. Then I'm going to return the value A. And if this is not true, then I'm going just to simply return B, since B will be the value which is great in this case. If A is greater than B, then return A. And if this is not true, then it means B is greater and hence return B. So what I'm going to do here simply, I'm just going to console dot log, and I'm going to console.log a value of 2, 3 is our function test, like so. Let me just close this guy here. So I'm going to console log this value. Then I'm going to console log another value with parameters 2, 7, and 5. So these two are enough for now. So let me just run this and then you see the weird stuff that will happen here. So it is quite interesting that our function here takes two values, right? A and B. And here we're comparing A and B, return A, and when B is greater, return B. But in this second call, I've passed 2, 7, and 5. And why is it that our value here, or rather our function here, is returning the value 7 when I pass 3 value? This is because by default, the function in JavaScript will remove any extra parameters that are not required by this function. So in our case here, our function will use the value 2 and 7 and remove the value 5. So our function here will use the value 2 and 7 instead of value 2, 7, and 5. So that is how function will other works in JavaScript. So now let me use the keyword argument as I promised. Here what I'm going to do, I'm going to modify our function here. First, I'm going to just say, let me just remove everything here. So this function will not take any value, but any value that will be passed here will be automatically be assigned to this keyword here known as arguments. So arguments will take any value that will be passed to this function. So I can just get the first value here of this argument by doing something like this, and then I can just say this is let large. I want to get the largest value among the values that will be passed in this function. So the first parameter is like so. And then I'm going to use a for loop. This argument, which represents the value that are passed here, represents like a collection of values. It is not really an array, but rather a collection of values that will be passed here. So I can use this for loop and just say let I equals to 0, and then we can have I which is less than arguments, that is arguments dot length, and then we can have I plus plus like so. Then inside our let here we can use an if statement to check if the current value that is being looped upon by this for loop, which is argument I, is greater than our value large. If this is true, then I want to set the large value to be our guy here. This should be arguments. and then I just copy this guy. So this will be the largest value among these values. So we loop through these arguments and check for the value. If it is larger than our initial value of large, then we set that value to be large until we get the largest of all values. So the last thing we need to do here is now to return our value of large, and we are done like so. And let me just add a semicolon here is a good practice. And so for our function now test, I'm going to pass as many values as I can. Let us add 99, let us say 88, and let us say probably 56. If I run this code now, you see it displays the largest value among this value, which is 99. And one thing, as I've said, is that weakness of this argument value is that it is limited since it is not an array. If it could be an array, we could do some very interesting thing by applying very interesting functions to this argument guy. But since it's not an array, we are limited to using. Let me just show you the instance type of this argument. I'll just add a console .log here. And in this console.log, I'm going to pass our arguments guy. This is arguments, copy and paste this guy here. And I'm going to say instance of array. And so if this value is an instance of array, then we expect it to print a value of true. But if it is false, then it will print a value of false. Let us run this again and see the value. So as you can see down here, we see false and our value 99. This is because the argument keyword is not an instance of array. So the next thing that I want to show you is how to use the REST functionality. And so the REST functionality is nearly the same with the argument functionality, but now instead of just writing our code barely as we have wrote here, I'll need to pass these three dots here with the name that I want to assign to all my parameters. In this case, I just want to say it is values. So you start with these three dots and then the name of your arguments. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to simply replace every instance of the argument keyword with these values, like so. And then lastly, here, and we are done. And so now if I run this code down here, it'll give me the same value of 99. But now if you check the instance of this value type is true, which means this value here is an instance of array. So that is the main difference between the argument and the REST parameter. This is called the REST parameter. And so I'm going to show you the advantage of using this REST parameter over the argument or the argument keyword. Since this is an array, you can apply as much array functions as you wish on this REST parameter. The greatest advantage with using the REST functionality, as I've said, is that it returns an array. So let me show you one of the coolest things you can do with this function to reduce all of these functions into a single line code. So I'm going actually simply to delete everything here. And then instead of returning a large, I'm going to return values. And then in array, there's a function called reduce. Inside here, you take, you pass parameters. In this case, I'll pass large, and I'll also pass a value e. And then after that, I'll say if large is greater than e, return large. Otherwise, return E. So guys, do not worry. I'll show you in the later series what all this gibberish code here means. So we have large. If it is greater than E, return large. Else, return E. I want the value for this large here parameter to be the first element in our array values. So that is what this code simply means, right? Interesting, right? That our code now has reduced to one line code. So you pass the parameter large and e. This large is this the same value that you're seeing here, and then a value e, which is simply the elements in this array here. So we are comparing large and each element, and if large is bigger, and then return large, otherwise return e. And then we, of course, we have the value for the large parameter. So if I run this code, let me actually now add some more values here, like so, and then just run this code. Okay, sorry, I forgot this arrow here, sorry for that. So let us run this again. So we have true and our largest value, which is this. Isn't this cool, guys, that we can be able to reduce all that code that we have into a single line code? In fact, now if I remove this guy instance, we have only a single line. So this makes your code much easier. So when it comes to argument and the REST functionality, always resort to use the REST functionality. So now that is it for this video, guys. If you like this video, please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and until we meet again, guys, bye bye.